Tonight in 9 News, shark ordeal. A teenage girl reveals she feared she'd lose her leg after being bitten at Ocean Grove. First on 9 News, heartless vandals smashed 90 graves and headstones at a Glenroy cemetery. High demand for testing across the city amid fears of another 7 Omicron cases in Victoria. Breaking news in the battle to replace disgraced Liberal MP Tim Smith in the seat of Kew. The world pays tribute to the Monkey singer and guitarist Michael Nesmith, dead at 78. Plus milestones for Nathan Lyon and Alex Carey as Australia takes first blood in the Ashes.
This is Melbourne's 9 News with Dougal Beattie.
Good evening. A 15-year-old girl who survived a shark attack at Ocean Grove has thanked the kind strangers who rescued her. Tiana Athanasiou was released from hospital just in time to attend her big sister's debutante ball. Elizabeth Moss has the story.
Holding hands, sharing a first dance from her wheelchair, a 15-year-old who's lucky to be here. This is Tiana Athanasiou at her sister's deb on Friday. Days earlier, she was attacked by a shark.
Jack, there's a shark on my leg. I said it exactly like that. And then it grabbed me here, and then Jack fought it off and then pushed me and was like, swim.
I didn't actually believe her. She just rang and said, Mum, you need to come down to the beach. I've been bitten by a shark.
The teenager was swimming with her friend Jack. They were neck deep in water at Ocean Grove when the creature struck. He tried to fight the shark off.
It just felt like a pressure on my leg, just like someone grabbed my leg, because this teeth are so sharp you don't actually feel it go through your leg. Then I got out of the water and my leg was like hanging off. And I was like, well, this is crazy.
In fact, she plays down her serious injuries.
Just nicked me a little.
Mum Corrie sees things differently.
The lower calf was pretty much off. So yeah, I wasn't really prepared for that.
Tiana and Jack were helped by Good Samaritans who sprung into action.
He put me on his surfboard and put the surfboard strap around my leg. He pulled me out of the water and 2 lifeguards off duty picked me up and carried me to shore.
And the Hobbs family, who administered first aid. Mum Diane, a former trauma nurse. To them, Tiana has one thing to say.
Thank you for everything that they did, because if they didn't help me, I would have probably lost my leg. I probably would have drowned.
Tiana spent 4 days in hospital after undergoing surgery. She won't walk for the next 4 weeks.
They had to do lots of stitches. She'll be right.
And at least for now, she'll be staying away from open water.
I'm a bit scared because, sharks are still my favourite animal. I love sharks. I don't think he meant it. I'll just stick to Dad's pool.
Elizabeth Moss, 9 News.
Cruel vandals have smashed up to 90 graves at a cemetery in Glenroy. Grieving loved ones were devastated to find statues beheaded and headstones destroyed. Neri Tai has this exclusive report.
It's supposed to be a place where loved ones can rest in peace, but instead these treasured graves have been vandalised.
Makes me want to cry.
John Blazak arrived at the Northern Memorial Park this morning to find his uncle and aunt's headstones deliberately damaged.
They smashed the angels, they smashed the photos. That's going to be the hardest part, is to get the photos back.
Heartless vandals struck sometime between Thursday night and Friday morning, targeting more than 90 memorials.
Oh, it's disgusting. I think that they should crucify them, you know.
Angels, saints and statues beheaded, plaques ripped from graves.
It really does break your heart. My dad has just passed recently from COVID over the other side, and that wasn't damaged, thank God.
Just last month, the nearby Faulkner Cemetery was also hit. Dozens of plots desecrated, some graffitied back in July. Crystal Broward, who was killed in the White Island volcano disaster, among the victims.
They've never obviously had their heart ripped out losing a loved one.
The Greater Metropolitan Cemeteries Trust CEO said, "I share their distress and I'm committed to doing what we can to prevent these criminal acts in the future."
They said the insurance claim will cover it, but doesn't help.
This has become such a major problem. Temporary CCTV cameras have now been installed. Equipped with motion detection, it's hoped the cameras will help deter any further vandalism.
Hopefully, they'll catch the idiots. I would like to get them.
Neri Tai, 9 News.
The Health Department is investigating after another 7 Omicron suspected cases in Victoria, and demand for testing surges across the state. And Australia's biggest names are on COVID alert after a positive case at the Actor Awards in Sydney. Medical reporter Emily Rice has the latest.
2 weeks until Christmas and the city is again teeming with life. The shopping precincts are bustling and plenty of people are heading to COVID testing sites too.
Demand has increased quite dramatically.
A near record 82,895 Victorians were swabbed in the past 24 hours. Leading Altona GP Dr Mukesh Harkawal says the surge in testing is symptomatic of Melbourne's high community transmission rates.
We've had to furlough 12 staff last week and also 6 staff this week. And that's not because of any infection that picked up here, but because of infections in the community.
There have been 1,193 new infections and 13 deaths. Just 3 cases of the Omicron strain have been verified in Victoria, but the Department of Health says genomic sequencing is also underway to confirm the variant for 7 other suspected cases who have tested positive for COVID-19. Infectious diseases experts here and overseas are still trying to establish Omicron's epidemiology.
There is higher rates of transmission, particularly in households. That's where they're seeing a higher rate of spread, not so much outside the home yet.
And a timely reminder that COVID loves a party, with confirmation a worker at the Actor Awards event in Sydney last week has tested positive. The A-list crowd, including Melbourne-based celebrities.
And we reiterate just how important it is for people to not attend social functions if they have any symptoms.
Pandemic jitters continue to spread in previously COVID-free states. In South Australia, even fully vaccinated people must now quarantine for 14 days if they are deemed a close contact of an Omicron infection.
We've got to be careful. We don't want a big outbreak in South Australia.
Queensland a little anxious too after recording 1 new Delta case today ahead of its border reopening.
From Monday, we are going to have thousands and thousands of people flocking from hotspots into Queensland.
While COVID anxiety appears to be growing in other parts of the country, here in Melbourne we seem to be getting on with life in a COVID-safe way. Emily Rice, 9 News.
To breaking news, the battle to replace disgraced MP Tim Smith as the Liberal candidate for Kew has been won. State political reporter Mark Santomartino is in Caulfield for us. Mark, the votes are in.
It's been a marathon, Dougal. They started at 2 o'clock today. 6 candidates were whittled down to 2 over the last 4 hours, setting up a final vote between the 25-year veteran David Davis and the relative newcomer Jessica Wilson. In the end, with the backing of Josh Frydenberg, the federal treasurer, it was Wilson who did it easily, 99 votes to 64. That result is somewhat humiliating and won't sit well with the Liberal veteran who was hoping to move to the lower house, following in the footsteps of Matthew Guy, possibly with leadership aspirations. But as he arrived today, he certainly didn't sound confident.
Despite 25 years in politics, David Davis wasn't taking this pre-selection for granted.
I think it's we've got to work hard.
His much younger challengers were decidedly more upbeat.
Looking good.
Jessica Wilson's run rubber-stamped by her former boss, the federal treasurer.
And it's really important that whoever is successful today gets to work straight away.
Whoever wins will replace Tim Smith on next year's ballot for Kew, who crashed his car at almost 3 times the legal limit months after helping Matthew Guy unseat Michael O'Brien, who easily survived a challenge in his seat of Melbourne.
I accept the umpire's decision because I got a really strong result.
A resounding 99-57 win, inspiring O'Brien to rejoin the front bench after losing the leadership.
I'll go for Liberal democracy over Labor dictate every time.
7 Labor MPs, including Frank Maguire, are in the firing line when Labor's national executive selects candidates on Monday.
Today I'm calling for leadership and asking for the Premier to intervene.
A plea supported by a disgraced Adam Somyurek. Shooting Frank is like shooting Bambi. Daniel Andrews is about to shoot Bambi, wrote the former minister and notorious branch stacker, calling former colleagues to record and leak private conversations with the Premier. Victoria needs to be saved from the Mad King.
Factionalism is the cancer in the Labor Party that must be cut out.
Mark Santomartino, 9 News.
State and territory leaders are tonight being warned against slamming borders shut despite growing cases of the Omicron variant. It comes as the federal government prepares to reveal more about the economic impact of lockdowns and lockouts. Here's Rachel Baxter.
As border bubbles burst and Christmas plans brew, businesses prepare for a bumper summer.
We're really excited for the borders to be open again.
But confidence is clouded by the threat of a new virus strain.
It can be one thing one week and the next week you're shut down.
The Treasurer urging states to stick to the plan.
Our economic recovery depends upon it.
As the government prepares to release its mid-year economic and fiscal outlook, early figures forecasting a bounce back from lockdowns and restrictions, with business investment up 16% compared to last year, creating 60,000 more jobs for summer.
This is a sign of growing confidence in our economy.
But Labor says wages are stagnating and housing affordability is at an historic low.
The government's own budget had real wages going backwards. Many Australians are feeling the pinch.
For many first home buyers right across the country, there's only about 10% of homes that are on the market that you can actually afford.
Some areas where we're hearing some reports of increase in wages, more broader based wage growth is going to be, I think, a little bit more difficult to predict.
One thing is certain, economic recovery will be a major focus for both sides of politics at the election due by May. Rachel Baxter, 9 News.
A motorcyclist has been killed in a crash in Warburton East. The 53-year-old rider was travelling on Woods Point Road when he and his bike hit a ute around 1:50 p.m. Police are asking anyone with dashcam footage to come forward as they piece together what led to the crash. 3 young children are in hospital after a horror crash in Mickleham this morning. 2 vehicles collided, causing the ute to flip over on Mickleham Road just after 11:30. A woman was taken by air ambulance and a man by road to the Royal Melbourne Hospital. The primary school-aged children are now in a stable condition. Conman Peter Foster has been extradited from Melbourne to Queensland to face the music over an alleged $2 million sports betting scam. He was flanked by police officers as he was led through the airport, but was still keen for a bizarre chat. Natasha Kramer with the story.
Ungroomed and in handcuffs after 6 months on the run, Peter Foster returns to Queensland, surrounded by police. Are you happy to be in Queensland?
I'm very glad to be back in Queensland.
Marched through the Brisbane airport, having arrived on a flight from Melbourne, the 59-year-old extradited over an alleged $2 million cryptocurrency scam. Will we be fighting charges?
Oh yeah, this is nonsense, this is bogus, I'm not worried about this at all.
He refused to say where he's been or what he's been doing. Were you hiding out in Victoria? His attention instead turning to Julian Assange.
I'm just taking a moment to feel for Julian Assange today, and I just hope that everyone gives a moment for his troubles, which are far greater than mine. I think as a nation, we should be ashamed that our government isn't doing more to save him.
The serial conman was arrested in Victoria's Macedon Ranges on Tuesday. A warrant was issued for his arrest in May when he failed to attend a Sydney court hearing. It's alleged he defrauded a Hong Kong pilot of nearly $2 million in Bitcoin between 2019 and 2020 as part of a sports betting scam. Last year, he was arrested in a dramatic beach takedown at Port Douglas and extradited to New South Wales, but somehow slipped out of the state. Foster will now be driven to the Watch House where he'll spend the next 2 nights before he'll front court on Monday. Charges against Foster were dropped in New South Wales. Queensland Police expected to lay fresh charges over the weekend. Natasha Kramer, 9 News.
Britain's High Court has cleared the way for Julian Assange to be extradited to America on espionage charges. The US government has won its appeal after an earlier ruling determined the WikiLeaks founder should not be extradited over mental health concerns. Europe correspondent Brett McLeod reports.
Making her way through supporters immediately after the court decision, Julian Assange's fiancée vented her anger.
How can they accept
An extradition to the country that plotted to kill Julian, that plotted to kill a publisher because of what he published.
The UK High Court has overturned a lower court decision from earlier this year, which had blocked Assange's extradition on the grounds he was a suicide risk. That was appealed by the United States, which gave assurances about Assange's treatment in custody, even offering to have any prison sentence served in Australia. The High Court judges ruled there is no basis for assuming that the USA has not given those assurances in good faith. The WikiLeaks founder, who remains in Belmarsh prison, is wanted in America on 18 charges after the publication of leaked military documents on the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq.
While the ruling clears the way for Julian Assange to be extradited from the UK, it doesn't make it automatic. His legal team now desperately trying to find what avenues are left to try and stop it.
We will fight. Every generation has an epic fight to fight, and this is ours.
They could petition the Supreme Court to hear a last-ditch effort to block the extradition, which for now is back in the hands of Britain's Home Secretary. In London, Brett McLeod, 9 News.
A curious Kelpie cross has been lifted to safety after falling 16 metres down a mine shaft. Terry got into trouble after wandering away from his owner in State Forest near Woodend last night. Specialist CFA crews helped with the delicate rescue, which took around 3 hours.
Lots of pats indeed. Terry jumped straight into his owner's arms and then into the warm car afterwards. So yes, very happy dog.
Thankfully, Terry wasn't injured. Now, with a look ahead to sport, here's Corey Norris.
Thank you, Dougal. Good evening. Tonight, Australia draws first blood in the Ashes as Lyon joins a special club.
Is that it? Is that the moment it is? Nathan Lyon! His 400th Test match wicket. It's been a long time coming.
We'll hear from the new skipper who gives us his take on a couple of injury concerns, the former Hawk with a real point to prove at the Cattery, and Hamilton strikes first in the F1 title fight. We'll have all that and more coming up a little later in sport, Dougal.
Great stuff, Corey. Looking forward to it. Well, next in 9 News, the push to unmask predators on dating apps to better protect stalking victims in the wake of Celeste Mano's death. Plus, tributes for the Monkees singer and guitarist Michael Nesmith. And a day of much-needed fun to bring cheer to a sick boy. Victoria Police is pushing for urgent reform on stalking offences following the murder of Celeste Mano. The 23-year-old was allegedly stabbed to death by her former colleague last year. Police want tougher measures, including the power to have social media and dating apps provide information needed for criminal investigations. Authorities are also calling for tougher punishments for stalking offences. Well, he was the guitar player in a woolly hat who wrote a string of top hits as part of the US pop group The Monkees. Michael Nesmith has died of heart failure at home in California, aged 78. This tribute from Alison Petrowski.
Dreamt up by Hollywood executives their own fame. Michael Nesmith, guitarist, singer and wordsmith behind Circle Sky, Girl I Knew Somewhere, and Listen to the Band.
Hey, hey, mercy woman, plays a song and no one listens.
Born in Houston, Texas, the son of Betty Nesmith Graham, the inventor of liquid paper, Mike moved to Los Angeles after a brief stint in the Air Force and experienced some early songwriting success with Linda Ronstadt's first hit, Different Drum. Picked up in a screen test and transformed into part of an instant pop sensation.
Okay. I think I'm out of work. I hope I get this serious.
Nesmith not the star, but a force in a supporting role. He fought for the Monkees to be able to write and record their own material and for creative control of their music. The band merely a launchpad to a long and successful career. His second act behind the camera, a producer and director of films and creator of a music video format that eventually led to MTV. Nesmith won the first ever Grammy awarded for video in 1981. After Davy Jones' death in 2012, the band regrouped for reunion tours, their concerts earning glowing reviews. Mickey Dolenz, the only surviving band member, heartbroken today. I'm so grateful that we could spend the last couple of months together doing what we loved best, singing, laughing and doing shtick. The two played their last show together, a farewell tour, just 4 weeks ago in Los Angeles. In the United States, Alison Petrowski, 9 News.
Hurling chairs and throwing punches, an all-in brawl has broken out at a casino in Atlantic City. Dozens of men in suits started attacking one another, with a lone security guard helpless against the chaos. The casino had been hosting a real estate convention. A Melbourne community has organised the ultimate kids party for a brave 10-year-old boy battling cancer. The major fundraiser included visits from emergency services and one of Tommy Hood's football heroes. Elizabeth Moss was there.
Wakeboarding and water fights. What? Melbourne Cable Park was the place to be today, and the day was all for Tommy.
What do you think of all of this?
Crazy. The 10-year-old was diagnosed with T-cell lymphoma in September, turning his family's world upside down.
That was the beginning of the end. I found out in the middle of the night my son had cancer. He's I shouldn't even cry. Yeah, he's just amazing.
His family and friends have rallied around him, putting on a fundraiser at the place the young wakeboarder loves.
We needed to obviously come down and help raise some money, raise awareness.
So good to see him out, back on the water.
Just thought I'd drop by, help donate.
And they invited everyone, including the police air wing. Tommy trying his hand at a few different jobs, even reporting.
How does it feel to be a legend, Tommy?
Cool. But the highlight for this young Saints fan, kick to kick with a familiar face.
I turn around and I see Jack Steele. And I'm like, what?
I was more than happy just to come down here and do what I could for Tommy and have a kick with him and give him a jumper from the club.
More than $20,000 has been raised as part of a GoFundMe to help support Tommy's family through his treatment. It's hoped that, plus the funds from today, will help him get back to doing what he loves a little sooner.
This is all happening now. We've got 2-3 years, so I don't know what's around the corner. But what I've got now, I'm lucky. I'm lucky.
Go Tommy! Elizabeth Moss, 9 News.
Justine Conway's here now, and Justine, the weather's played it fairly low-key today.
Yeah, it has, Dougal. It was some stubborn cloud over the city today, but it still managed to climb back into the 20s for the first time since Monday. It peaked at 22.4. And with light showers through Gippsland again today, the flood situation is easing. But major flooding is occurring at the Snowy River, and that's extending downstream towards Orbost. This month, eastern parts are already well ahead of the rest of the state in terms of rainfall. Some areas have collected more than 100 millimetres, and that's been the pattern for the past 3 months. Now, this map highlights the contrast between the east and the west. The areas in blue have received between 300 and 600 millimetres. Now, there's not a lot of rain forecast for the week ahead, but once again, it is expected to be concentrated through Gippsland, Dougal.
OK, thanks, Justine. We'll see you soon. Well, holidaymakers have again had to scrap cruising plans, with the government extending its ban. When cruise ships will be back in our waters next. Plus, the end of the road for a Victoria Police staple, and a secret holiday revealed as the backdrop for a royal Christmas card snap. A search is underway for a missing registered sex offender who is evading police. Marvin Morgan is wanting for failing to report to authorities. The 48-year-old is believed to be living in the Glen Huntly area.
Police have information that Marvin Morgan may be frequenting the St Kilda and South Melbourne areas, however have been unable to locate him to date.
He's about 160 centimetres tall, with short dark hair and brown eyes. The extended ban on cruise ships could see them locked out of Australia for most of next year. The industry is pleading for more government certainty as it bleeds $5 billion a year. Hayley Francis reports.
Sydney's Circular Quay, the country's busiest cruise port, more destitute of any holiday hopes than ever before.
We're hoping that cruising will come back after May, but realistically, 2022 seems like it might be a write-off.
For nearly 2 years, hitting the high seas from our shores has been off limits. Now that ban has been extended to mid-February.
We need the ban lifted at the federal level, but we also need the states and the territories to agree the pathway forward and what the COVID-safe protocols will look like in those states.
The delay leaving 18,000 livelihoods dependent on the crippled industry up in the air, our economy losing $5 billion. Each year these ships are barred from our waters.
They're saying that we should be learning to live with COVID, that we should be opening up. The same thing should really apply to the cruise industry.
Industry and big business aside, families simply desperate for an affordable holiday are becoming all too familiar with disappointment.
Why can we fly and yet we can't cruise? Cruising has become the scapegoat for the pandemic of COVID here in Australia.
The cruise industry has been promised close engagement with the federal government over the next 8 weeks. Its position likely to remain risk-averse, with the memory of the Ruby Princess still very fresh in people's minds.
We need to be looking at cruise through a late 2021, early 2022 lens, and not back to the beginning of the pandemic when we were all learning about how the virus works.
Hayley Francis, 9 News.
Taylor Swift will have to face a jury trial over accusations she copied the lyrics for her hit song Shake It Off. Girl group 3LW claimed their song was ripped off, the track containing the phrases "player's gonna play" and "haters gonna hate." A judge has refused Taylor Swift's request to dismiss the case. Wearing casual gear and bearing wide smiles, the Cambridges look relaxed in their annual Christmas card photo. The picture was taken in the desert during a secret family holiday to Jordan earlier this year. Prince Charles and Camilla have also released their holiday photo, this one with a nod to the pandemic. The Holden Commodore has been used by Victoria Police for decades, but the last Australian-made highway patrol car has hit the road for the final time. Gillian Lantouris with the story.
The final lights and sirens ringing out on its last day on patrol.
You're actually the last driver ever to be intercepted by one of our V8 highway patrol cars.
After 7 years, these SS Holden Commodore V8s are putting the brakes on a career at the highway patrol. They are the last Australian-made police cars to operate in the state.
They accelerate hard, they stick to the road really well, they brake terrifically well.
The fleet was produced at the Holden Centre at Fisherman's Bend before the manufacturer closed its doors for good in 2017.
I'm a bit sad to see these ones go. I personally love these cars. They've really done a terrific job for us.
That job has included patrolling bushfire-ravaged communities during summer and, more recently, deployed for Melbourne's Ring of Steel.
I've been rammed by a truck in one of these cars and that protected me that day.
The very first Victoria police car was a Ford Utility in 1949, which was later replaced with the Ford Falcon Candy car before switching over to the Holden Commodore in 1979. Now the force is opting for the German-made BMW 530s, which has even more bells and whistles.
Automatic number plate recognition system, so that gives us the capability to basically be scanning while we're driving and we can pick up a lot of offences.
Some of the retired fleet has been given an afterlife. Car enthusiast Jordan bought one of the last Holden Commodores when it went under the hammer in August.
I'd been following Holdens for all my life and now that it's gone, it is a bit hard and hoping to keep that history alive.
After their final shift on the beat, the police cars will be parked here at a complex on Dawson Street in Brunswick, where they'll be stripped of their branding and sold off at auction.
This is the last time you'll ever hear a radio call from a V8 Australian-made highway patrol car.
Gillian Lantouris, 9 News.
Another huge weekend for Melbourne's property market. How much this Canterbury home went for next. Plus, the Doncaster grandfather helping veterans feel at ease for more than half a century. And an album of native bird noises knocks off a festive Michael Bublé on the music charts. The Canterbury home has fetched $6.5 million in another huge weekend of auctions. The 5-bedroom property is the most expensive sold today. Meanwhile, the most affordable home was a 1-bedroom apartment in Richmond that sold for $342,500. 789 properties were sold with a clearance rate of 65.2%. The Heidelberg Repatriation Hospital is celebrating a grandfather who has dedicated 55 years to helping veterans and their families. Robert Winther not only cheers up patients who are suffering, but has also created a safe place for returned servicemen and women. He spoke to Neri Tai.
Tucked away in the middle of a hospital, a sanctuary.
Veterans really love this place, so I will get emotional with it. It's got a special feel.
Where veterans and their families can find peace.
Feel safe when he walks through the gates. We all do. It's almost as if we've got it tattooed on our chest.
It's one of the many beautiful spaces Robert Winther has helped create after working at the Heidelberg Repatriation Hospital for more than 55 years.
Old to some extent. I've still got a lot of energy.
Robert's father, Paul, served in the 39th Battalion at Kokoda, but was killed in a car crash after coming home. It was the generosity legacy showed towards Robert, his siblings and their widowed mother that inspired his career.
We were probably underprivileged and they helped us get through.
Built in 1941, the former military hospital was used to treat men and women returning from war. But 80 years on, it's still a safe place for veterans to rebuild their lives together.
Many of the old vets were cared for here in the war years and then have come back in their old age. And then you have to handle it. I've known them for decades. Yeah, that drives me.
And it's a spot to reflect on history.
You've got Vivian Bullwinkle, you've got Ted Kenner, VC, who was shot through the face and awarded the Victoria Cross, cared for her.
In his very unique role, 74-year-old Robert has helped the hospital evolve over time, from managing families to running services inside the chapel and negotiating funding for projects. But the job he takes most seriously is cheering up people on Ward 17.
I will deliberately aim to get them laughing.
Sometimes dropping in for a coffee or chat is the best kind of medicine. Robert also takes the patients on tours of the hospital.
They really love on site is the bomb shelter. World War II bomb shelter, unique. It's fun. You've got to have fun, you've got to have laughter.
A huge part of our heritage is serving our veteran community, and he has made such a difference in their lives.
No one knows that more than longtime friend, Vietnam veteran Robert Webster, who along with his brother, also a returned serviceman, was treated for PTSD at the hospital.
He's the sort of half glass, half full guy all the time, or 3/4 full. Or a bit overflowing, and you know he's always trying to just G people up because this place can be, unfortunately, fairly depressing at times.
Robert's work isn't quite done just yet. Before he retires, he wants to finish off a few projects, including securing extra funding to upgrade the walkways around this garden, as well as renovating a retreat for the Ward 17 patients.
I'll always say I'd be happy to be the old fellow out there cleaning the plaques and renewing the poppies, and I could probably still MC the services for a while. They could bring me out on a trolley.
And if there's a will, there's a way, and Robert Winther certainly has his way.
It will be a hard job to say that's it, but I'll be a volunteer. I won't be far away.
Neri Tai, 9 News.
A surprise album has skyrocketed up the ARIA charts, overtaking pop sensations ABBA and Mariah Carey. The album of rare bird chirping, featuring 53 of Australia's most threatened species, has debuted at number 5. More than 2,000 pre-orders of the Songs of Disappearance album have already been placed from passionate bird lovers. There you go. Now, with more sport, here is Corey Norris.
Thank you, Dougal. Up next, we'll hear from new Aussie skipper Pat Cummins on that stirring win at the Gabba, as the GOAT reaches a long-awaited milestone. A veteran cat recruit opens up on his desperate search for a flag, and catch me if you can, Hamilton's early warning to his rival. Australia has drawn first Ashes blood, steamrolling England on day 4 in Brisbane. Nathan Lyon's 400th Test wicket sparked a dramatic collapse, the tourists losing 8 for 74 to ensure the Aussies needed just 20 runs for victory. Ayrton Woolley has the highlights.
It certainly unfolded quickly, Australia cruising to victory shortly after lunch.
And Australia take the opening test in the Ashes.
Those runs sealing the perfect start to life as captain for Pat Cummins.
Exceptionally proud. So many different stories within the game.
One of those stories, Nathan Lyon, who'd waited 11 months and 209 deliveries for this milestone.
Is that the moment it is?
Australia's greatest off-spinner finally snaring his 400th scalp.
I had a lot of banter going on, so it was probably on my mind a lot more.
That in turn sparking an England collapse.
Edged and gone!
After resuming at 2 for 220, the tourists were suddenly 4 for 229, and from there, no coming back.
Screws away, and the catch is taken by Green.
Alex Carey snapping up his 8th dismissal on debut.
He equals the record.
Importantly, Josh Hazlewood bowled, albeit the skipper later admitted he was managing a mild side strain.
Nothing too serious, but didn't want to turn into a huge injury.
And while Carey opened the batting to protect David Warner, bruised ribs aren't expected to keep him out of the second test in Adelaide.
We actually came in when we needed 20 to win, couldn't find him anywhere in the stadium. No, he's fine. We just chose not to risk him.
As for England, there's now some soul searching to do, but Joe Root wasn't making any excuses, even after the controversial call to leave out Jimmy Anderson and Stuart Broad.
You can't question the guys that were out there this week. Our seam attack in particular, as I said, have created so many chances and given us a great opportunity. We just weren't good enough to take them.
Ayrton Woolley, 9 News.
And Cricket Australia has apologised to fans after that test was plagued by technical issues. Today, the entire world feed went down for several minutes, even when it did resume. Only one camera was working and the decision review system was unavailable.
It hasn't been ideal. We're very sorry for the fans. My understanding of the situation is that it was an issue with one of the generators in the outside broadcast compound.
Meanwhile, confirmation Hobart will replace Perth as host of the 5th test, now a day-night encounter starting on January 14. A brilliant final over from spinner Adam Zampa guided the Stars to a thrilling Big Bash win against the Thunder. Needing 11 runs from the last 6 balls, Sydney's big hitters couldn't dispatch the leg spinner.
Zampa comes to the party once again, and the Stars have won the clash against the Thunder at the MCG.
It was the Stars' first win of the season. Former Hawthorn veteran Jonathan Segler is determined to prove he won't be just making up the numbers at Geelong. After 9 years at Waverley, the 30-year-old ruckman says he's got plenty of unfinished business in search of an elusive premiership. As he celebrated a milestone birthday earlier this year, Jonathan Segler was of the belief he'd only just entered the prime of his AFL career.
Probably the back end of my last year was probably as good a footy as I've played through my career. I may be 30, but footy-wise, I'm probably not with my body, so probably, got 3-4 years left.
But little did he expect a call from the Cats, who for over 12 months had been widely criticised for their ageing list.
I did see a couple funny photos of some older faces my wife showed me, but from that point of view, it didn't worry me.
Segler played 101 games at Hawthorn across 9 seasons, but never tasted premiership success. He played in the 2014 preliminary final, but was the hard luck story the following week when he was overlooked for Ben McAvoy as the Hawks again held the silverware aloft. He'll do everything he can to ensure he doesn't miss out again, with plans to be a key part of Chris Scott's ruck combination from round 1.
He wants 2, and he's seen Melbourne have 2, and all the really, really good teams generally have 2, so it's trying to work how that looks and feels.
And already, he's seen enough to believe Geelong will be around the mark in 2022.
One thing that I probably learnt from Clarko is you just got to be top 4 and give yourself a chance, and anything can happen in September. So that's this sort of group, and that's exciting to be involved in.
The Cats will kick off their season against the Bombers on March 19. Melbourne Victory will be aiming to get back on the winners list tonight across the border in Adelaide. Meanwhile, in Geelong, Western United got the jump on Brisbane.
Brilliant from Western United. A super goal from Connor Payne.
Late in the second half, it remains 1-0. And in the Premier League, Brentford scored 2 late goals to snatch an important 2-1 victory over Watford. Lewis Hamilton has heaped the early pressure on F1 rival Max Verstappen in practice for the title-deciding Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Hamilton topped the timesheets in the second session, half a second quicker than Verstappen.
This is a 1:23.6 for Lewis Hamilton, so comfortably above that 10 seconds a lap faster margin.
The winner of Monday morning's race will claim the world title, and that's our sport tonight. Dougal?
Great stuff, Corey. Thank you. Time now to check back with Justine. And how's the second half of our weekend shaping up, Justine?
Dougal, it'll finally feel like summer again. The city's forecast to be warmer than average for the first time in almost a week. I'll have all the details for you next.
9 News presents 12 Days of Christmas. The local stories that will lift your spirits and fill your heart with pride. Everyday heroes giving back to the community. 12 Days of Christmas starts Monday on 9 News.
Hello again. The weather made a rather sluggish start to the weekend with very little chance for the sun to break through. But after a run of days in the teens, the city climbed into the 20s this afternoon, peaking at 22. Southeasterly breezes have pushed across the metro area, and while most Melbourne suburbs reached 22, the sea breezes kept Geelong to just 20. A couple of spots around the state had a rather cold morning. Rutherglen dipped to 4 and Horsham to 5. And once again, maximums have been below the December average right across the board. Northern parts of the state climbed into the mid to high 20s, but it was cooler through the south, especially Gippsland. Just 17 at Mallacoota and 19 at Morwell. Now, there's been very little rain anywhere in the country today, and it'll stay mostly dry tomorrow with just a few showers along the eastern seaboard. Victoria's weather will peak on Monday as winds switch around to warmer northerlies, but a cool change is expected to arrive later in the day, and that could trigger some isolated showers and storms through the west. We can expect a warmer day tomorrow, particularly through northern districts. There'll be widespread maximums in the low to mid 30s, but Gippsland will be cooler once again as the southeasterlies continue to send in onshore breezes. A top of 20 is on the way for Orbost and 21 for Sale and Latrobe Valley. Now, today's clouds should disappear once the sun goes down, and combined with light winds, that means we can expect a rather cool night. Yarra Glen is heading down to 8 degrees, Ringwood, Epping and Melton 9, with minimums of 10, 11 and 12 elsewhere, and there's likely to be some patchy fog over outer suburbs in the early morning. That'll clear for a sunny day with maximums a few degrees higher than today, mostly 25 or 26, but in the northeast, Yarra Glen and Ringwood should reach 27, slightly cooler in Rosebud 24. After an overnight low of 11, the city is heading for 26 and there'll be plenty of sunshine. The sun won't set until 8:36. A much warmer day on Monday, 32 degrees, but a cool change is forecast to arrive in the evening. So it's back to 23 on Tuesday. Wednesday looks like being the only wet day in the outlook, just a few millimetres, but there is the chance of a thunderstorm during the day, and a little cooler, 21. Dry skies on Thursday, 21 again, then jumping up to 27 on Friday, and we can look forward to a much warmer weekend, starting off with 33 next Saturday. Not quite as warm as that tomorrow though, still sunny, a beautiful day with a low of 11. The city should reach a top of 26, and that does sound pretty good, Dougal.
Certainly does. Thanks, Justine. And that is 9 News for this Saturday. Sylvia Jeffries is up next with the current affair. We leave you tonight with more on that incredible tale of the 2 teenagers who fought off that shark at Ocean Grove. Good night.
Last night he fought off a shark. Today he was back at school.
Turned around, got me on the back, and then I said swim.
I got out of the water, my leg was like hanging off.
Mum, you need to come down to the beach, I've been bitten by a shark.
The teeth are so sharp you don't actually feel it go through your leg.
The boy had a gash to the back. That happened when he was trying to help the girl.
I told him, don't worry about me, get her. Most of my mates didn't believe me. I'm like, oh, been bit by a shark. No, you haven't. Turn around, blow up. Oh, got bit by a shark. Took a few Advil, we're all right.
Sharks are still my favourite animal. I love sharks.